One thing that Israel has an advantage over all these Arab countries is that it has developed its indigenous military weapons technology, something that many of these Arab countries have not developed. So, Israel has,
They always rely,
but they
all
have
they
the
know
money.
is like, yeah, but that's the problem because their
Yeah.
solution to everything is just throw money at things, right? This is basically is very similar to a spoiled kid that doesn't know how to do things because their parents just threw money at them every time they had a problem. So a lot of these rich Arab countries, they don't know how to how to basically develop their own skills and talents and basically do these things because they just had so much oil money that every time they just needed something to fix something, they just hired foreigners to do it for them because they just could afford it, so they didn't develop any of their own local skills.
That's
Okay, so next we have Nicholas.
Nicholas, hope he's still around. Yes, still here. So unmute yourself. Click the micro. Click the mic icon to unmute yourself. Nicholas, if you're having technical issues, write in the chat. If the mic is not opening, you probably need to give it permission in your browser. And if that doesn't work, you might need to refresh the browser. Nicholas, do you hear us? Write in the chat. Do you see the chat? You could talk to us there. Nicholas 1, Nicholas 2. All right. So that's sad because I was waiting for Nicholas is new here, I think, right? I was hoping to see
Yeah.
what he has to say. Yeah.
So, Nicholas, if you get
Nicholas,
it figured out, go ahead and type to us in chat either way. I will move on to the next person just for the sake of time, and then we'll let you cut in as soon as you get it situated. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce off some of the things that Armin, he touched a lot of good points. One is the issue of political capital and national will. So General Giap's book, How We, meaning the Northern Vietnamese, allegedly won, read, stop the United States from realizing our regional goals, which is an independent South, albeit corrupt, democratic Vietnam. We won all the major, like, tactical battles, and we won the strategic battle because it cost the Soviets more to support the North than it did for us to do the stuff in the South. And our Senator Chuck Warner's National Security Act of 2000 outlines that the United States' most vulnerable center of gravity is its national will. And he's very right about that. As far as like U.S. and Iranian people's interests are very much regarding the elimination of Mullah regime are very much aligned. This was actually said, and it's actually trending right now. I'm gonna post it in the chat. That was actually then Senator Rubio's statement regarding the fact that if we did not hit the Mullah regime in 2015, when Obama was doing all his stupid shit regarding the JCPOA, that inevitably we're going to have to fight the Mullah regime. Why is the issue though? Why is the delay? Because again, you have an ever-changing operational environment. We need more interceptors because the patron states of the Mullah regime are providing material support in part to the Mullah regime. The other part, and that could be ballistic missiles, particularly if the mullahs were given turnkey systems. This goes to what Armin's saying about what's the main concern: either don't do or do fully don't have to. And he's right, because if you have to and you have a mortally wounded Mullah regime, which is one of the things I included in the intel assessment of the threat, risk, and vulnerability assessment that was sent to retired Israeli flag officers 4 years ago, you now have a mortally wounded Mullah regime that goes down the S curve prospect theory and says they're going to be risk adverse, risk acceptance instead of risk adverse because they got nothing left to lose. I mean, they already are going to do that because they're pseudo theologically motivated. Now they have even more impetus. So what does that mean, say, operationally? It's not just the ballistic missiles, although that's a big issue, particularly if the Mullah regime is given turnkey systems by Putin, Xi, or anybody else for that matter with regards to WMDs. It's also using proxies to attack other actors in the region. For instance, it's not so much that the allies are worried about if we'll leave the area, it's that the Mullah regime is going to tell their proxies hit everybody, not the least of which, to exemplify that threat, is the September 14th, 2019 large-scale drone and missile strike against two major Saudi Aramco energy processing facilities. Right? I mean, it was done by Mullah-backed Yemeni Houthis that did that, and it disrupted 5% of the global production of oil. And then everybody's like, oh, so we got to make sure we protect those assets as well. real quickly with regards to battle data, Armin's right that, yeah, it's good to sit there and use your latest and greatest toys to get real world battle data back in preparation for broader conflicts in, say, Europe against Putin's criminalized counter-intelligence state or the Chinese Communist Party invading Taiwan. The issue with that is whenever you use capabilities like that, it also helps the adversaries as well, particularly because the adversaries, whether it's Putin or Xi or the North Koreans or whoever, then start doing their own version of, albeit not to the degree we can, massent or measurement based intelligence. All of that to say this, and I want to reiterate this because I said this 2 days ago. I was trying to get there before I jumped off, and then I'll be done. There's a reason I keep, given all this fluid environment and that is happening and how it affects things at the national level. There's a reason I keep pushing home that the pro-Iranian resistance diaspora should very much follow the model that was developed by Ukraine's diaspora to ensure that they get support in supplement to what goes on at the national level. And Armin, you should probably reach out to me on that.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, can we just discuss it here sometimes? Because I don't know when. No, okay. All right. So, yeah, I'll add that to my to-do list. I will reach out to you. Thank you.
So
Sorry that I haven't already. I will. Okay.
we are going to try in for Nicholas one more time.
Nicholas, you can do it.
Afternoon.
Nicholas. Oh, I'm not hearing
Hello.
anything. You guys are.
I hear Nicholas.
Oh, okay. Go on. I hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah, go on. Go on. Usually there's a delay for me. Oh, never mind. All right, we just heard hello. So it's okay. We heard you say hello, but then you muted your mic. All right,
Okay,
let's
so
go
next,
next.
I want to clarify, Daniel Dome, had you raised your hand earlier to make a comment on a previous conversation, or do you have a question?
No, I have well, I guess it's a short one.
Is
Could
it about
be
this topic that we just talked about?
no, it's on the
So then
Iranian. Yeah, something else. Yeah.
okay, then let's add you to the list because it's not about this topic. Okay, so let's go.
Yes, this is he was on the list, but he raised his hand
Oh.
much earlier, and he did also comment earlier.
Oh, I see.
Clarify. Yeah.
Okay.
But sorry, Daniel, if you don't mind, Nicholas, it looks like he was able to
Oh,
turn
it's
his mic
fine. It's
back
fine.
on. Can we try one more time for him? Nicholas, if you can hear me, can you try again, please?
Daniel Dome.
Okay.
All right. So about the chunky yogurt, like, why does Piers Morgan still gets him on his like, why does he host it still? Like, everyone gets
What?
his IRGC propaganda. Like, why?
So for people who don't know, he's talking about Shank from TYT. Oh, because he brings views. Because he brings views. He's very emotional and he shouts, and that brings views. And Piers Morgan makes more money when you have more views. So that's why you invite people who are just very like emotional and bombastic and making a scene. That's good for views.
There was also an event like maybe a year or two ago where he brought on Jeremy Corbyn, who said some really terrible stuff, and he was proud of exposing him for those views. So I think there's some element of him trying to expose people for their views, but probably not in this particular case.
I just can't get. I can't get whether this Piers Morgan guy. He has to have his own opinion. Like, he has to choose a side, right? I can't believe he is 100% neutral. I just can't get what kind of his own views. Like,
Who cares? It is what it is.
well,
Okay, next we have Mike. Are you still with us, Mike?
Mike.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So a few days ago, I've seen on Fox Live that they platformed someone who said that the legitimate alternative leader for the opposition is Maryam Rajavi. So when Iran is free and would hold elections, how would the new government prevent the lefties, Marxists, and the anti-Pahlavi puppets from infiltrating the government or influencing it somehow?
Wait, who said that? That Maryam Rajavi is the alternative? Where was this
It's
said?
some kind of person that they platform on Fox Live a few days ago, 2 days ago. I'm not sure
Right.
about the name, but I'm pretty
So
sure that it's not real. But my question is that when Iran is free, how would you prevent these people from infiltrating and having their influence on the new government?
I'm listening. Let me tell you why they're more of a problem now than they could be a problem then, right?
Okay.
Because if Iran becomes free and we're democratic, then through the democratic process, we can see that like the MEK has no support inside Iran, right? So that would be great for us to let the democratic process just show how pathetically non-existent their support base in Iran is. The problem with these people is right now. The problem with them is right now because their influence doesn't come from the support that they have. Their influence comes from the money that they have and the special interest groups and the lobbying and all of the other connections that they have created with American politicians, especially from Republicans, for the MEK at least, right? That all of that will become meaningless once we have the ballot box to demonstrate who has enough political capital to basically exert their influence, right? All of that is going to go away once we actually have the ballot box to demonstrate that. This is, by the way, the reason why by the way, they're so anti-Pahlavi. Because if they were truly for democracy, they would just be like, hey, let's just free Iran. Like, who cares about how bad Pahlavi is, in their opinion at least? Let's just get rid of the Islamic Republic and just let the democratic process show if Pahlavi is really that bad, when they shouldn't be afraid of just freeing Iran and just letting it show that, oh, as they say, Pahlavi has no support. Pahlavi has the highest support among the Iranians. But if they truly believe Pahlavi has no support in Iran, then they shouldn't be afraid of just fighting against the Islamic Republic and just let's see what everything stands after based on the people's choice. But the reason why they're so anti-Pahlavi is because they know, and they're not really anti-Islamic Republic. They're more anti-Pahlavi, other than they want the Islamic Republic to survive because they know that the Iranian people will not choose them. And once the Islamic Republic falls, that will be demonstrated so easily. That's why a lot of these people are not really trying to get rid of the Islamic Republic. When it comes to the leftists, by the way, I said Nora Bars, I think she wants to add to this point, which would be great to hear her as well. When it comes to leftists, we have to be careful what we are talking about when we're talking about leftists, because we're not, as much as we say like death to the leftists, we're talking mostly about the communists and the woke, and we're talking about their ideology, not death to the people, right? Because the Iranians are not against all ideas that are leftists, right? We just had such a bad experience with commies and woke people that we because like so, for example, some of Muhammad Reza Shah's policies were more left leaning than some of them were left leaning. We're not against everything left. People who self identify as leftists in the Iranian politics, they have been just such a. What I'm trying to say is
You
that
mean the hard left?
it, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to define the. I'm just saying that we need some form of leftism inside our politics in the future. We cannot have a parliament that every single party is right leaning. Like, what the hell, right? So I'm pretty like
Yeah, I get that.
even if you're right leaning, yeah, even if you're a right leaning person, you want some form of a competition to hold you for this to become a democratic process. And you like, even like, I think right leaning people would want a good left leaning opposition to, because or else then you're going to just be fighting among each other, and there's also not that much, there's nothing Like, we want to have a proper left-leaning parties, like liberal, patriotic left-leaning parties, rather than this commie bullshit and this woke or separatist or anti-Persian racist. You know how you have anti-white racism in America from some leftists, right? We also have anti-Persian problem, right, inside Iran. We don't even know what the Persian ethnicity means anymore, because it's mostly a language or a culture. But there are people who are like, you know how you said they call you like a white fascist. So we also have some leftists in Iran who call you like, Persians are fascists. These Persian fascists against the Kurds and the Azeris and the Baluchis. So we basically have our own version of that. That if you're a Persian, you must be a fascist. We have that, like some crazy leftist minority groups who say that. So we don't want any of that fucking bullshit nonsense. We want a proper left-leaning, liberal, patriotic form of left party. Does that answer your question, by the way?
Hi. So I just wanted to make a little comment for the non-Iranian audience when it comes to the MEK. One very simple question that we can ask. It's super simple. Anybody that's claiming that MEK is going to benefit Iran or whatever. A simple question would be, why does Maryam Rajavi, why has she closed all of her comments all across her social media if she is claiming to be so democratic? Why is she stopping her communication from the Iranian people? She does not want to hear what the Iranian people has to say to her. And if she's claiming to be so democratic, the simplest thing all across her social media, she's posting constantly, paying all of these politicians to post for her, and yet her comment section are closed to public. So that's a very simple question that non-Iranians can ask about the MEK.
Actually, that's a very good point. You could add two more questions to that. Why is she not available for questioning ever by any journalist? She's only available for praising. Not a, you know how Princess of Pahlavi is always available to journalists to ask him the most challenging questions and he will answer you. Maryam Rajavi, nobody could challenge her on anything ever. You only would be invited there to get paid and then praise her. One. Two, you can't ask Maryam, but you could ask any MEK member if they would accept anybody other than Maryam as the leader after the Islamic Republic falls. If the Iranian people vote anyone else, would they accept that? And then just turn red and probably want to kill you or something, right? Or just try, like, I don't know, insulting Maryam to just see how they react, because they by the way, they don't see Maryam as their leader. They see Maryam as their god. Like, they genuinely worship that woman. And also her husband, which I don't know if he's dead or alive anymore. By the way, ask him this: where is Masoud Rajavi? Is he dead? Is he alive? Like Maryam's husband, because that was the main guy. Like, Nara, do we know where he is? Because he's missing. They say he's alive, but we haven't seen him for 20 years.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Nobody knows where he is. So, guys, before Maryam Rajavi was the leader of the MEK, Masoud Rajavi, Maryam Rajavi's husband, was the leader of the MEK. And after the fall of Saddam in 2003, something happened in Iraq. The Islamic Republic attacked Iraq. So when Saddam was falling, the Islamic Republic took advantage of the situation and they went into Iraq and they bombed where the MEK was. And ever since then, we haven't seen Masoud. We haven't seen him. And other people think that he might have died in that attack. But the MEK says he's alive, and they give us audio recordings of him sometimes, but we haven't seen him. He has never, like, there's no way to verify if the audio recordings were from before. He doesn't talk about anything that makes it clear.
No one saw Nasrallah for like a decade before we killed him, so.
No, Nasrallah was coming out and talking about recent events on camera, right? Like, we had video recordings of Nasrallah
Yes, he
talking
was.
about recent events.
Didn't show up in person.
Yeah, but we know he was alive. But
If it wasn't a huge distraction right now, a campaign of "Where is Masood" would have been very interesting at this moment. But obviously,
yeah,
where is
yeah.
Masood?
Ask.
Add it to the 100-day plan. Maybe it's like day 101. Once everything is
Yeah.
settled, 101,
Yes.
boom.
Yes. Yes. Where's my suit? Ask the MEK people why they help Saddam kill Iranians during the Iran-Iraq war. Ask them that. See what they answer. Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
find some bullshit to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Shaul.
I saw Shauna at some point raise her hand as well. Who's
Shaul? Going once? Still here even?
are you still here?
He said skip me.
Okay.
Oh,
If
Shauna.
you'd like, type it in the chat and I can read it for you.
Yes.
So next is myself. I want to talk about the amount of money we send to the Taliban, and maybe Mr. Capella has a little bit to chime in on that. It's a lot. And I'm curious. We know it's not for humanitarian aid, just like we knew the money going to Iran wasn't going to go for humanitarian aid, just like we know that UNRWA money is not going to humanitarian aid. So now that we've got that out of the way, my question is, I know Biden was a huge proponent. Was this happening before him and it just upkicked with him? And also just kind of tell me how you really feel about this.
I mean, I can say that did the United States sending money to the Taliban occur prior to the Biden administration? I haven't seen anything like that. You're not wrong about how you characterize it, right? The money that went to the Mullah regime under Obama, even Obama's own Secretary of State at the time, or interim Secretary of State, John Kerry, admitted some of this is going to go to support terrorism and nuclear weapons. Well, then why the hell are we giving it to them?
Do you agree that it's a little more than some?
Oh, it's definitely a significant amount. It's
Yeah.
definitely way more than what they had. With regards to the Taliban, my God. Afghanistan's one of the poorest countries on earth. So, I mean, after Biden's reckless disengagement from Afghanistan and how the whole friggin' country rolled up in a couple of days and all the mess that came after that, it wasn't just like the Biden administration just stopped in its blunders. Oh, we're going to give money to the Taliban to push like gender equitable teaching for kids or something. I mean, it's crazy. I wish we didn't do it. Tragically, we have a lot of people here who are whores. I just don't know how else to put it. Whores for hostile actors that are willing to be their unregistered or even registered agents of influence to push for hostile actors at the cost of U.S. national interests. See John Kerry when he was an unregistered agent of influence for the Mullah regime. See the people who push for nonsense regarding Gaza. Oh, we have to help the Gazans have sewer. I agree. Tragically, within 24 hours, Hamas ripped the pipes out of the ground and turned them into Qassam rockets. Like we legit have videos of them doing that.
Yeah.
So, I guess what's my overall short and skinny of that? You're like singing my crying game. I wish it wasn't that way. Again, that also underwrites just how important like all of your efforts are in fighting the battle of the narratives. Efforts like Armin, efforts like Goldie, efforts like Tulsi, efforts like Brigitte Gabriel, efforts like Rosa Leonetti, efforts like the people out of Heritage, because a lot of people don't even know that that's happening.
But
right?
so another point to that is the current administration should very well know that it's happening. Can you comment on what they are doing, what they're not doing enough of. I would also point out that there's a huge lack of outrage that there should be within this country. But I mean, none of us, I think, are confused, and we don't even have to go down that road as to why that's not happening. But we have an administration who certainly loves to make big choices, who loves to make choices that stand him apart to the people on the other side and whom he can't stand and whom he thinks have made a bad choice. Why is it that this one in particular has not made that list?
So real quickly, uh, the best. I mean, I can't give you I don't know for a definitive or any definitive way. If I don't know something, I'll tell you that. I will tell you that my gut tells me a big contributing factor that is bandwidth limits, right? A lot of shit's going on everywhere. You got all the stuff going on in China. You have China threatening Taiwan. You have the stuff going on in Europe. You have the stuff going on in Iran. You have all the stuff going on inside America, including it's crazy stuff about leftists calling ICE Gestapo and Trump is allegedly Hitler and all this other bullshit that all of our adversaries are amplifying. I mean, while this administration has some very capable people in it, Rubio being the most capable, there's only so much Rubio can do. I mean, they have that picture of him, Rubio fighting, realizing he's going to be the next Shah of Iran. Rubio now realizing he's going to be the governor of Greenland. Rubio now that he's going to be the next chief of, whatever, Indians had their land taken by, Billy Irish. I mean, there's just so much people can do. And that's probably a huge part of it. It's also why I think one of the points I made was to pre-bunk a lot of disinformation that's pushed by any number of adversaries for both America and our allies, including the brave Iranians resisting the Mullah regime. Because reducing that noise means you free up kind of let's call it executive cycles, kind of like a computer. So I know Armin I very much like that about you, Armin. So they can then focus that on other things like the ones that you're talking about.
Well, personally, I'm thankful that they're spending their time with Iran as opposed to worrying about the Taliban at this point in time. So I'll take that.
So let me actually read what I found. So they're only sending indirect money that gets into the hand of Taliban. So there's no direct money. So $0 that the United States doesn't officially recognize or fund the Taliban. Approximately $40 million per week is flown into Kabul in cash. This is a UN managed money, but the US is the largest contributor. So how it gets to the hand of Taliban, they tax workers, salaries, and charge fees to NGOs and control the central bank where the cash is auctioned, allowing them to stabilize their currency and access to US dollars. The reason why the United States does that is to prevent mass starvation. Over 20 million Afghans, roughly half the population, currently rely on this aid for food and medicine. So the current status of this is that the US government has slashed its direct aid by over 80% since 2025. And there is ongoing legislation. The legislation is called No Tax Dollars for Terrorists Act, which is aimed at stopping the weekly cash shift entirely. But the people who argue that this should continue is because in 2026, US policy focuses on security and fiscal saving for Americans. Preventing a total state collapse prevents groups like ISIS-K and Al Qaeda from using a failed state as a safe haven to plot attacks against the US. As bad as the Taliban is, from an American's perspective, Taliban is a local problem. Taliban never plans to attack the United States. The Taliban, they never, no, they never, Taliban is completely local. It's ISIS and Al Qaeda that might want to come and kill Americans, like halfway across the world, and kill Americans and Europeans. Taliban just wants Afghanistan and I don't know, half of Pakistan maybe, right? Like if they could get that,
They don't have
like the
silent cells in other countries? Sorry that interrupted. No, they don't
No,
do this.
no,
No?
no. Taliban doesn't. Taliban is not involved in that. Taliban is mostly a local thing, right? That's Al Qaeda. That's ISIS. So if Afghanistan becomes a failed state, I mean, to be fair, when you go into Afghanistan, sometimes it's hard to tell if you're like, what the fuck are you? Like, are you Taliban or ISIS? Like, sometimes today I'm Taliban, but I used to be ISIS, and if I feel like it, I'm gonna be Taliban again. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, 2 years ago I was feeling like Al Qaeda. Now I feel like Taliban. 5 years from now, I might be ISIS. Like, ask me then. I don't know, right? So again, the Taliban itself is not involved in any of this, but sometimes like the is blurry between, like, people change their mind, right? So for example, ISIS considers Taliban to be ex-Muslims. They consider them to be Mortads because they believe in Afghanistan as a country, which is un-Islamic. I mean, the Taliban believes in the nation state model, at least, like they believe in Afghanistan, which is against the idea of a caliphate. The Taliban believes in the man-made laws that they have created in Afghanistan, which is shirk in the eyes of Al Qaeda and ISIS, which makes them mortads. In the eyes of ISIS, Taliban and me are basically the same category, right? They basically have left Islam. They call them mortads, so because they consider them to be un-Islamic. But so ISIS-K, for example, in Afghanistan, tries to convince Taliban members to come join ISIS-K to be proper Muslims, rather than the Taliban members who are, not. This is also this. We have a similar situation, for example, in Gaza. We have groups that are in Gaza that are more ISIS-like, that are anti-Hamas because Hamas believes in election. So Hamas is infidel; they're not Muslim because they had election. If you have election, then you believe in man, human institution rather than God's law. Like, you believe in people's opinions, human opinions being mattering in the matter of legislation, which is basically associating partner with something that God could do. Only God could give laws. So Hamas are infidel because they had elections, right? In their opinions of some ISIS like groups inside Gaza. So from a US perspective, if the Taliban falls, I mean, we don't want to go back there and basically keep everything together. So if the Taliban falls, what happens is that Afghanistan becomes a failed state. I mean, it is kind of like a failed state right now, but more of a failed state. And it's going to become a perfect area for ISIS and Al Qaeda to as a base of operations for more attacks against Americans. To them, they're much better than ISIS and Al Qaeda. So stopping a total collapse prevents groups like ISIS-K and Al Qaeda from using a failed state as a safe haven to plot attacks against the United States. So again, broader and global stability, preventing mass famine stops millions of refugees from destabilizing U.S. allies and global borders. Saving taxpayer dollars. Since 2025, the U.S. has slashed aid to Afghanistan by over 80%. So the thing is, from an American perspective, you should be asking your government to reduce that to a minimum, only to the point where the Taliban doesn't collapse, but bringing it to zero seems like doesn't make sense from a American security perspective. The goal is to
I
keep
saw
the region stable. Yeah, like bottom line, the goal is to keep the region stable enough to avoid another war while ending the financial burden to the American taxpayer.
I saw some faces being made that
Yes,
I
I
would
said that.
love to hear about. Before I do, my favorite Persian here, sorry, made a comment in the chat that I have to read in my California voice. I'm terror fluid, alhamdulillah. Don't miss terrorist me.
Okay.
Did you just assume my terror?
Nice. All right. Who's your favorite Persian? Was that Nare?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ban her.
I'm
But okay,
Armenian
anyways,
though.
let's go to Jeffrey.
But thank
Let's
you.
go to.
True. Okay, my favorite Iranian.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, Jeffrey.
So you're very much correct about the issues surrounding failed states and how failed states can translate human security concerns, food, pot of water, shelter, personal security through their positive selection of more autocratic or dictatorial personalities because they have tightened decision cycles and can handle or will apply things to problems very quickly into traditional interstate security concerns. That's very true. As far as like, and I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud here, it's the idea that somehow the Taliban did not facilitate. It's true that the Taliban did not engage in direct attacks against the United States proper.
Did not say, did not facilitate.
Okay, right. So that's my point, though, right? They did, however, facilitate those attacks vis-a-vis the Taliban's support in providing sanctuary from '96 to 2001 for Al Qaeda. You had Taliban insurgency against all my fellow soldiers in Afghanistan for the entire time we were there, from 2001 to 21. And it's true, you're not wrong about the failed state. You're very much right about that, right? So the idea is to provide food assistance. That's why Senator Rubio did what he did. He was trying to sit there and square that circle, which is you had during the Biden administration with all the crazy shit he was doing. It was like this money spigot was put out, like just opened up. And it didn't really matter where it went because they didn't really care where it went, right? It seemed like where it's like, okay, Senator Rubio, when he became Secretary of State and then the head of USAID, is like, we want to make sure like 90% out of every dollar doesn't even get to the people who need food. So we're going to make sure that if there's any aid that goes there, we're going to do our best to make sure that it actually gets to the people that need it. Read food, but people who are starving. Tragically, the Taliban maintains control of that area and says, well, if you're going to do that, you have to go through their specific sanctioned institution. Well, they're the institutions they control. And so, they're going to take their fee. That's very true. I just wanted to add the caveat, though. While it's true the Taliban didn't attack, the United States directly, they definitely facilitated that. You're not wrong, though, about the difference in extremity. That's very true. Like ISIS and Al Qaeda, they very much view people, like even things like the Taliban, as jahiliya or rida, apostasy, right? Because they're not, even though they're batshit crazy, like the Taliban's batshit crazy. I mean, they're very doctrinaire. They're terrorists. They're just like, it's like saying, well, there's a difference between the Wehrmacht and the SS, right? I mean, yeah, they're both enemies. There's something unique about the SS, about how evil they were. So, you're not wrong about the differences in extremity.
So when it comes to facilitating from the Taliban perspective, by the way, BT, this is a very interesting conversation that you started. But I know we need to get to the other people, so I'm just going to make these last points. So when it comes to facilitating from a Taliban perspective, it's not that we're facilitating a war on the United States, right? Because that's not their agenda. From their perspective, is that these are Muslim, they are our guests, and we will protect them. Like Al Qaeda, they're in Afghanistan. There are our Muslim brothers, and if these infidels want to come asking us to, like, they're our guests, and we're going to be treating our fellow Muslims guests with, we're going to treat them like our Muslim brothers. So that's when they're facilitating them or protecting them and not handing over Al Qaeda to Americans. It's from that perspective. It's not that the Taliban itself was trying to, attack America. Like, it's mostly that, right? I mean, they're anti-American. They love to attack Americans if Americans show up in Afghanistan. They love it. They love killing Americans, right? But they don't have an agenda to create a global caliphate around the world like Al Qaeda or ISIS does, right? Also, when it comes to radicalism, I'm not saying that they're less radical. Their target of their radicalism is different. Like, I have watched so many videos of Taliban doing the most extreme batshit crazy things. So like, I know that they're evil. Like, I watched a Taliban member just so casually put like a plastic bag on this guy that he had in his room, tied as like somebody that he captured in the streets, and he just like he had his hands tied, and he grabbed this plastic bag and he just put him, and the guy was begging, known like he was trying to not this happen to him, and he just put the plastic bag around his hand and he just watched him suffocate. And it was like one of the most horrific videos I've ever watched. And once I watched this video, I was like, fuck all of these people. Like, that was such a hard video to watch. And the casual way he went about just putting the plastic bag on the guy's head while he's begging him not to do that, and then just watch the man just suffocate in that plastic bag. It was so these people are absolutely, batshit crazy radicals. So I just think like their eventual goal, like their goal is not to like bring down the White House, like, one day. They don't fantasize about that as much as, an ISIS member or an Al Qaeda member might. They
It's
do. They're very Pashtun focused. You know what I mean? Like they're Islamic, but they're also ethnically tribal. But go on, BT. When it's
So we will chair this because we have quite a few
yeah,
others on the
okay.
5 or so others on the list. But I want to rain check on this, Jeffrey, to get a little more information from you too about kind of how you see the United States and at what point are we going to actually start making the right choices when it comes to Islamic terrorism and terrorist groups within the Middle East. Because what we know for sure is that every single time we happen to screw it up, we get some things right, but we screw a lot up. And I think a lot of that from I'm not very educated on it, but from my point of view, it seems like we're just having a really tough time understanding who that enemy is. And we like to prop one person up to help them stop this other person, and then they become the new person who's our problem. When are we going to get this through our head? So I would love to, no crystal ball, but are we so I'd like to table that, but kind of talk to you later
Just
about that.
just a quick response. I understand your frustration, BT, but the situation sometimes is more complicated than just completely be like just leave it and go.
Sure.
Like that's yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that we just wash our hands of the Middle East and hope that Israel can and Iran
Yeah.
can take care of
Well,
everything.
Afghanistan, not Middle
No,
East.
no, to take care of everything for us. But it very much seems as if we pick somebody who's least troublesome and we give them weapons and we give them money and then they become more troublesome. Well, guess what? They were only not troublesome because they didn't have as much power. And then when we give, so to
Yeah.
your point about Afghanistan,
So
they might have a
America,
plan,
but America is not giving the Taliban any weapons at all right now.
but we bolstered other people to fight off other enemies and then left
That was
weapons.
during
So I get what you're
that was
saying.
during Reagan's time. That was during Reagan's times against the Soviets. Yes, that happened a long time ago. Yeah. But
So
right now they're not. Yeah. Okay. There's so many people waiting. Let's actually move on from this and then we could come back to it again.
so next we
Not
have Sean.
wait, let me just say, Jeffrey, I didn't say Reagan supported Taliban, but the people who they supported, the Mujahideen, at that time the Taliban didn't even exist. But they supported the people that eventually yeah, okay. Sorry.
I had a question, regarding Taliban itself. Can I ask it now or should I wait?
We're going to
Um
move on just because we've got the rest of the list to get to. And then once we clear the list, if everybody wants to get back into this, then yeah, absolutely. Thank you,
Can you
Sam. We'd
add
love
me
to
to
hear.
that?
Sure. I've already got you there.
Ah, thank you.
And Rebecca, I have you as well. Make sure you guys keep an eye on the chat. I'll let you know when I see a hand and have added you. So next is Shauna.
Shauna's been waiting for a long time. Sorry, Shauna.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting conversation, so it's not been a bad wait. I was going to ask, so one of the things about like we were talking when I first entered the chat because I came here late, you were talking about we want to reduce or possibly make zero American soldiers deaths in because Americans are really sensitive about that. I'm not saying that it's bad. I value soldiers' lives. I wish we would value their lives when they became veterans as much as we do when they're actually soldiers, but that's a whole other conversation. I was going to say, though, that one of the things, though, that I feel is, or one of the things that I think is complicated about that is, yes, Americans are sensitive to it, but also Americans are like largely reacting to what I think that there's still mainstream news that has a poll on voters that are like, I'm thinking of like my mom and people like that who still kind of, even if they're watching it through Facebook or YouTube, they're still watching mainstream, like CNN or Fox or whatever they're watching. And a lot of that stuff is very focused on not the Middle East. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of mainstream media talk about the Middle East. I'm seeing it mostly, they talk about Greenland, they talk about immigration, they talk about Epstein, they talk about their stuff. And my mom, my boomer mom, who is, I think, representative of like kind of the typical liberal boomer, and then also her best friend who's conservative, who's a typical MAGA boomer, they don't talk about this stuff. They're not glued into the Middle East. They don't know anything about this. They kind of are like, I don't know, I know 3 Muslims and they're all nice to me. That's their like, I got my Jewish friend. They don't like these like kind of like, God bless them, they're kind of oblivious to a lot of this geopolitical stuff. So I don't know. I guess my main question is that I don't know if Americans are paying enough attention that we couldn't sneak in some boots on the ground. I think that it would only become an issue if Democrats decide that they need to make it an issue in order to attack Trump. Otherwise, I don't think most boomers are going to pay attention. And most boomers are still the predominant voting base, them and Gen X. Those are still the people who vote the most. Millennials, like statistically, yes, we vote more than like Gen Z because we're older, but like we are still not great at showing up to the ballot box. Really.
Well, I mean, if it goes well, if the war goes well, then the Republicans, I mean, the Trump base is going to make sure that they hear about it. And if it goes bad, then the Democrats are going to make sure they hear about it, right? So then there's going to be a lot of campaign money.
I'm not saying Gen X and boomers are the same demographic. I'm simply saying that you guys are both voting blocks. That's all I'm saying.
But you agree that it will become a major thing that they will listen to, like hear about at some point once the war starts, because then both sides is going to try to make sure for them to use it
I
as a
guess
campaign. Yeah, because they're gonna say, they're gonna like, if I was a Democrat, I would be like, oh my god, we have so many problems at home, why are you spending money over there? This is why we don't have, this is why the potholes are not filled, this is why we can't afford healthcare, this is why this and that. Like if I was Democrat, I would be running ads saying that, right?
Yeah,
But
historically, I would agree with you, but the problem is that the Democrats, despite the fact that their popularity is shrinking, are doubling down. They like on a lot of issues. I guess my counter to that is I actually don't know what they're going to do because a lot of what they would typically do is not seeming to be what they're actually doing. The Democrats seem to like not be shifting policy very much. They're doing a little bit
I don't know,
socialist.
but doesn't that confirm what I'm saying? If they're not shifting, then they're going to continue what they've always done. Then that's basically, you're saying what I'm saying. Then they're going to do what they've always done, and this is the narrative that they usually have regarding this point.
No, so okay, this is where we would maybe disagree. The idea that we should get out of the Middle East is not
They will they could say endless wars. Like, why are we out there when we have so many problems at home? Just out there in general.
Yeah, the concept of it being like here's where I guess we would slightly disagree maybe is the idea of like America, quote unquote, America's quote unquote involved in endless war is not necessarily a Democrat or a political that base, that anti-war base has been split between both parties at this point.
Yeah, but that doesn't negate what I'm saying. I know there's many people on the right who say the same thing, but it doesn't negate the fact that there's a huge portion of Democrats who say that. I mean, that they're like there's very little Democrats who wouldn't take advantage of saying this. And just because there's also people on the right that say that, that doesn't mean that this is not a Democratic talking point. I mean, only who is that?
Historically, yes,
Friedman.
but they're still
Like
not talking
Friedman
about
is the only one who wouldn't say that. Like among the Democrats, well-known Democrats, what's his name? Friedman. Yeah. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about? The guy in the sweatpants who never wears a suit. You know which
Oh,
senator I'm talking?
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's not Friedman. That he's not Jewish. It's the senator from the
Fetterman?
Fetterman.
Fetterman. Yeah.
So among all the well-known Democrats, only Fetterman is the one who would say like, "Yeah, go fuck them up." All the other ones seem to be the ones who would say like, "Oh my God, like why? Stop it! Come home. We need you here." Like all of them. This is their most of them. This is their
Yes,
narrative
but
at
I
least.
don't okay, I understand your point, but the problem is that they're not focused on the I don't know if a hypothetically, God forbid, we lose an American soldier, right? Would that I don't know if it would actually get attention. That's, I guess, my point. I feel like everything's focused
Why
in
wouldn't it get attention? It fits the narrative. It fits. It perfectly fits an anti. I mean, when have they when have they missed an opportunity to attack Trump? This is an
I
opportunity
know
to
it
attack
fits
Trump.
there's a lot of things
Huh.
that fit a narrative that they haven't been doing, though. They seem to be
What do you mean?
hyper focused. Well,
They have
they're
the, they're
okay,
doing
here's
all
the
of
thing,
it.
they're also just they're
Yeah.
so focused on not losing their illegal immigrant voting block that I don't know, like, I don't know if they would shift really, 'cause
They don't need to shift. They could do both.
the maybe. I don't know.
I mean, they have before. They could do both again. Like I could see easily a campaign that has both. Um,
Anyway, we can circle back to this. I don't have a good argument. I don't have more arguments. I think that maybe we shouldn't be
they were like they're like is he yeah they would be they would actually try to connect it with each other. They're going to say Trump is a racist.
but yeah, they would
Like
try to connect it.
he's killing non-white people over there and also non-white people over here. Right, so we can connect them
He's
together.
killing Muslims who are a brown
Yeah,
people despite being a religion somehow.
yeah,
But
he's
Jews
killing
are a
brown people
religion
in
and
America
not
and
yeah.
outside of America. Yes, I don't know.
I understand what the talking points would have been. I
Yeah,
just don't know if they would actually pivot because they're and
this is consistent with the previous. This is not a pivot.
it would be a pivot. Okay, it would be a pivot away from national, local issues like immigration and Epstein that they're super focused on in the news, and a little bit Greenland. And it would be that would to international issues that
Yeah,
would
so
be the pivot.
again, Greenland is an international issue. The fact that they could do
Yeah.
Epstein and
Yes, but it
Greenland
has
at the
to do
same
with
time.
yeah, but it has to do with like okay, I'm gonna be very blunt in how I love the boomers. I'm gonna be very blunt in what I'm about to say. A lot of this kind of old stock, kinda like boomer liberal or boomer conservative, they don't really see Europe as foreign. I'm gonna get real blunt about that. Even though they understand it logically is, they don't see a relationship with Europe
Yeah,
because they come from this Western hegemony. They grew up
yeah,
in this kind of post in that like the height of the post World War II period,
yeah.
and I'm just being honest how they think.
It doesn't matter because again, the American soldiers who are going to be sent into, who are going to be in the Middle East, they're American, so they're going to care about that. The dollars that is going to be sent on this war, those
The
are
other
American
issue
dollars.
yeah,
But
but the
like,
other the yeah.
but Shana, I feel like you're just going based on I don't see
Right,
that
so we'll circle
happening.
back until I can come up with a more cohesive argument. How about
Yeah.
that?
Okay. 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 But yeah. Anyways.
My main point
Um.
though is I don't think
Oh.
I think that if we were going to strike Iran, I think that the country and the boomer bloc is so focused on other stuff
Yeah, but you
that
said
we
you already said that. You're repeating yourself, and I
okay,
just
anyway,
think
I'm
like
done. I'm done.
no, no. I also think like you need to have like a reason. Like I hear your claim. I just don't see any argument for it. You might even be right. Okay, but
I don't
but
have
if you want to
data. You're correct that I don't have hard data.
or any or an argument, like even if you have no data, it's okay if you could make an argument for it. I'm just not hearing the argument. I'm hearing the claim, but I'm not hearing the argument. I mean, at least I have an argument. My argument is like, well, they have done this before, so why would they stop doing that? Like that is an argument. But you're saying like, well, boomers don't care. Like, do we have a poll that boomers are not going to care about what happens in the Middle East? Like, do you have a
They
poll suggesting that, or is
my
this just a
claim is
feeling
not that
thing?
they're not gonna care about what happens in the Middle East. My claim is that they are still getting their
All right.
news from the mainstream media, and the mainstream media isn't gonna care. Because
The mainstream media like cares right now. Like the mainstream media really was covering the what's happening in Iran a lot. So
Okay.
The
I
mainstream media
wasn't
was
see
covering.
that wasn't what I was seeing. So I'm just wrong about
Right.
my data. So that's where the argument's coming
Right.
from.
Right. And I'm pretty sure if Trump attacks the Islamic Republic, I'm pretty sure every single mainstream media outlet is going to be covering that.